I can't help it that I look good, smell good, woo, can dance all night long. But the groove runs to the top, oh yeah. You've been talking to the apes and the giraffes and chimpanzees again, haven't you? Yes, I'm excited!
All right. Good evening, everybody. Fast Freddie back in action. We've had a few weeks off, and we are back ready to make something happen, or at least we're going to try anyways. It's another edition of Fast Freddie Rocks Youngstown from the state-of-the-art Youngstown studios in beautiful downtown Youngstown, Ohio. And coming up today, of course, we're going to be talking about some of the things that I know the most about, or at least I think I do. We're going to be talking about vinyl records. We're going to be talking about rock and roll, and we're going to get you ready for National Record Store Day coming up this weekend. And my guest today is Zach from Fat Hippy Records in Brookfield, and also the one and only Jimmy Gustafson from the band Poobah, the legendary Youngstown band Poobah. And they're generating, so what do you got going now? About 50 years now, Jimmy?
It is true.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Poobah and some of the great things that we have done together and how our paths crossed back in the younger days before we even knew each other. And, it's just been a great run for Poobah. And you guys have been such a big part of the Youngstown rock scene. And you're going to be a part of Zach's big party coming up on Saturday. So, Zach, first let's start with you and give us a little rundown of what's going on and what we can expect and where you're located and the whole 9 yards.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Fred. We're located in Brookfield next to Subway. And on the 12th, we're having Record Store Day. It's a national event. Most people who are tapped in with music and vinyl kind of know already. But all the major labels collaborate to put out a ton of exclusive releases. I mean, there's box sets coming out from the Dead. There's Stiv Bators coming out. There's a wide variety of stuff. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So what do they got with Stiv, man? I know a lot of people around here would be really interested in that one.
I know it's on Munster Records, and I know that Frank Sessage from Blue Ash actually did the liner notes.
Oh, wow.
And that's actually really all I know about that one. That one's kind of like under wraps a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But then they've also got the Talking Heads live from the Agora. And that's obviously a hot thing around here.
Right.
But, more interested on what's going on in the actual day is we've got legendary Poobah reuniting, kind of doing their own brand new thing here, huh? Jim, were you going to talk to Jim about this at all? Or?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you got going on, Jim.
Well, we've just released not one, two vinyl records. This one on California label Ripple Music. And then this one right here, a reissue of the 1979 Poobah Steamroller album. And it's got a new label on it. Alibi Gus Tunes, My Little. And it's on color vinyl.
Now Poobah records over the years have been highly collectible for many, many years, going back to day one. How did you guys become so collectible? How did this whole thing come about where the Poobah vinyl is so sought after? How did that all come about?
Well, I asked all these record collectors because I was pretty much bewildered. I was bewildered that albums would sell for $1,000. I was like, what? How'd that happen? And I wish I had known this, so I would have saved more of them.
Yeah, right.
And the formula, as far as I can tell, is a combination of a couple things. One, the quality of the music, because you can promote the hell out of something, but if the record really isn't special, it's going to sink and die. And somehow, some way, it just happened. And I get messages from record collectors all over the world all the time praising these Poobah albums and stuff. And thanks to great record stores like Fat Hippy selling Poobah records.
Right.
I saw that a near mint one sold. Where was it listed? In Japan for like $1,200. Is that right?
Well, the most expensive one I've seen so far was the doctor told me that he paid $2,400 for his Poobah Let Me In. And I thought, shit.
Yeah,
Now let's talk a little bit about the history of Poobah. Now, when did you guys get together? And tell us a little bit about your journey in the musical world and how it all started and how you got to Poobah. And we'll talk about some of the gigs that I remember and some of the good times.
Well, my old friend Scott Hunter on bass and me formed Biggie Rat, and we had big dreams, and we found this great singer named Shirley Stahara. And we went through a couple of different drummers, Gary and Steve and Frank on keyboards. But as time would go, it's really hard to keep a band together. It really is. And I don't care if wonderful things happen to you. There's still somebody there who's going to be an idiot and cause it to crash. It just happens.
Right.
Well, anyway, as things would go, we got picked by Jimi Hendrix's bass player to produce us in Memphis, Tennessee. I was like, how could this happen? And then 6 months later, we break up. Things happen where different people want to control everything, kind of like a country.
Right.
And,
yeah, go ahead.
And so when the band split up in April of '72, I got a hold of my old school chum, Phil Jones, who's passed away now, but he was a great musician. He played with that jazz keyboardist, Daryl Main. And he played with him for a while, and he really learned a lot about music and scales and harmonies and stuff. And I had really great experience from being in the recording studio with Jimi Hendrix's bass player. And
wow.
And you go through life where there's somebody that is going to dislike you no matter what you do.
Oh, sure.
And, we've had our certain amount of detractors and stuff. And a lot of times people just say, don't listen to those jealous ass wipes.
Sure. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Paying $5 for their album.
Now, how'd you get picked up over, if you don't mind me asking, Fred, how'd you get picked up overseas? Because I know Poobah's records are pretty big overseas, especially Steamroller and Let Me In, US Rock.
Well, here about in 2010, I signed up with a record label in California, and there was a new record label called Ripple Music, and they released 3 of my albums already, and including this blue vinyl US Rock and this white vinyl US Rock, or that one's white and black swirl. And this one is yellow vinyl, 2 record sets. And this is a 180-gram vinyl for this one. And they've already sold out and are being reordered and repressed right now.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, man.
They sell out of Fat Hippy Records all the time.
There you go, man. You got to get that plug in. So now I remember Biggie Rat. One of the shows that I remember that you guys did was at Struthers Fieldhouse. Wasn't it with like Velvet Underground without Lou Reed and somebody else?
Brownsville Station and Alice Cooper was the headliner.
Oh, okay, right. So that'd be what, 71, 72, somewhere in there. I think that's when Ellis was just breaking out.
It was summer of '71, I remember. We got to play with Alice Cooper twice, and the second time we played with them, they tried their roadie who had a problem with substance abuse, really bad one. He tried to roll my Marshall, brand new Marshall stack with 2 bottoms and a brand new head, and he was rolling it up into a Ryder truck. And I went out there and I said, there's probably about 15 policemen right here, right now, on the other side of this door.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you 5 seconds to bring my amplifier back down here, or I'm going to go tell them cops that you're a stinking thief in Youngstown, Ohio. You won't like going to jail here, bud.
Well, he pulled the wrong place, the wrong city to pull that kind of stuff. That's for sure.
And I said, if I wasn't working here right now, I'd go get a couple of my biggest, baddest friends and teach you a lesson.
Uh-huh. And so how did he play? How did he play that off? Like, oh, I didn't know, or whatever.
Oh, it's an honest mistake. We thought it was ours. And I said, well, yours are up on the stage right now, and Alice Cooper's using them.
Right. Oh, that's pretty wild, man.
There's my band name on the back of that amplifier. Can you imagine that?
Now, some of those other gigs, where were some of the other places that you played with Biggie Rat that you remember that just come to the top of your brain?
We played with Uriah Heep in Columbus, a sold-out show. That was a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
And then we played with Cheech and Chong in Columbus.
Oh, yeah? Now, this had to be right back in the heyday, too, with these guys, huh? So that had to be pretty wild. What was that like?
I'd say it was wild. I mean, there was like naked girls running around backstage and people smoking funny cigarettes and stuff. You didn't have to smoke. All you had to do was walk through there and you were in a cloud.
I tell you what, one of the funniest things we ever had when Tommy Chong played the old Funny Farm when they were in the Metroplex in Liberty. And so we did this morning meet and greet, wake and bake with Tommy Chong, that sort of thing. And we had one guy roll like the biggest joint in the world. Of course, it was like with a bed sheet and a bale of hay and stuff. And this other guy got some kind of compressor and hooked up this gasoline-powered bong or whatever. But the funniest part is when Tommy's out in the parking lot and the guy comes and drops off his rent-a-car. And the guy looks like my grandfather. And this guy has no clue as to what's going on there, right? And he's standing there with a clipboard, and all these people are surrounding Tommy, and they're handing him joints left and right. And he's putting them in his pocket. He's putting them behind his ears and everything. So then he goes to sign it, and he pretends like he's signing it with a joint. And he looks at the joint, and then he puts that one back in his pocket. He grabs the pen. The guy had no clue what was going on there. He just took the clipboard, and away he went. And I was laughing so hard because I don't think anybody really noticed what was going on. It was just one of those things. And Tommy's just like, boom, boom, boom. But I'll tell you what, I thought he was one of the coolest guys I've ever met. I mean, he was really, really cool. I mean, he was just a fun guy and laid back, and that's how I found him to be.
They were very friendly to our band. They treated us with respect and talked openly with us and asked us if we had any weed.
All right, so now you make the switch from Biggie Rat to Poobah. How did that whole thing come about?
Well, after the band broke up, I called this really excellent bass player I knew, and then we auditioned several drummers, and we found one that was really powerful, Glenn Wiseman. And I had just gotten an insurance check, and my grandmother had taken out something on me. Some kind of, and when I turned 21, it became available to me. And first thing I did was go down to Peppermint Studios and find Gary Ramey and make a record.
Well, which was probably a wise move, though. You get a little extra sum of money there, and that probably helped put you on the way of what you wanted to do to achieve your dreams and your goals.
It was magic that it all came together like that. And you can ask Fat Hippy. He's got 3 copies.
I do. I have 3 copies to let me in right now.
Now, what an amazing place Peppermint Productions is and was. I think like every musician in the Youngstown area and all these people that have signed big record deals and everything back in the day, that was the place to go. It was just amazing. What are your memories of Peppermint Productions and working with Gary and just the whole scene there?
Well, I can say that Gary really knew how to operate the machines and get good frequency response, channel separation, signal to noise ratio was great on his recordings. And because of that, he could make really good albums with polka bands, rock bands, jazz bands, female singing bands, you name it. He could capture that sound, and he did a great job on those Poobah records. And we were young and naive, so we needed a little bit of guidance because our budget was like No, $600.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it was recorded in like 2 or 3 days. The whole thing was done. But if you remember, $1 in 1972 was like $20 now.
Right. Right. And so then after that, I remember then you guys started playing at all the different things around town, like Hot Day at Idora Park and all those other things. I remember you used to play actually right across the street here, right behind us is the YMCA. And I can remember we used to have those big teen dances down there in a day. And I know you guys played at those, and those were just amazing. I mean, they put 2,000 people, it seemed like, in those gyms.
It's so amazing. When they had that outside right there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was so many people there. I think some guy told me there was 3,000 people there.
Yep, and that was like on a Saturday night, a Friday night, right here in this gymnasium here. And then, of course, when you guys were coming up too, teen dances were always a big thing. With the different CYO dances in different places, and this hall and that hall. Those teen dances and stuff used to be a big deal.
Well, in all the cities that I've gone and played, I've found out a lot of things from playing with a lot of other bands, that the bands that seemed to draw the biggest crowds were the ones that got on the local radio stations. And if people would hear them songs on the radio, that band would become so popular in that region. And all of a sudden, WHOT and WPIC, which is now Y103, started playing Poobah, Mr. Destroyer. And that was the first Poobah song.
Yeah.
Great tune.
It's had close to 500,000 plays online.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that was a big thing too. Guys like Bootspell, of course, and we're really behind the local music scene with you guys, with Left End, and no matter who, Blue Ash, whoever would come out with something. I mean, those guys were really behind the local music scene. And then, of course, with Hot Day and just all these other places that were big back in the day, man. I mean, the scene back then was really, really cool.
It was. I'm not saying it's not cool now, but it was so much fun being a 21-year-old kid and hearing your song on the radio in Youngstown. I mean, all of a sudden, everywhere we went, there was a huge crowd, and we started making more money than we'd ever made before. And that seemed to get in the way. As soon as this certain band members and stuff, they want to argue about money, and sometimes that ends the band and stuff. If nobody's doing anything wrong, but that's just any business, I suppose. But I know that recently the Monster Magnet has recorded Mr. Destroyer. I think that Fat Hippy probably sells that Monster Magnet album, A Better Dystopia. There's a Poobah song on it. They're the ones that had that huge hit with Space Lord Mother Mother.
Yeah, right.
Well, they recorded Poobah Mr. Destroyer on their most recent album. And it's had 100,000 views on YouTube already.
That's pretty wild, man. That's really wild. But, getting back to the scene back in the day too, man. I mean, we used to have so much fun. I remember a big gig that you guys played. When you guys played, didn't you play with like Jim Dandy in Black Oak, Arkansas? There was a big outdoor show down around Mountaineer Park when it was still Waterford, somewhere down there in the hills of West Virginia. Do I remember that one correctly?
Jeez, I played so many thousands of shows. I played with Wild Cherry, with Joy, who Bob DiPiero now is. Bob DiPiero is from Nashville now, but he lived in Youngstown. He played in that band Joy. We played with them with Wild Cherry over there above Pittsburgh. We played with Cherry and Canned Heat in Wheeling, West Virginia. And we played with Quicksilver Messenger Service, Canned Heat, UFO, more. Cactus in Hagerstown, Maryland Fairgrounds. And then we played with them in Erie Stadium. There was so many people there. My knees shook when I looked out at that audience.
Well, Well, that was pretty cool, man. I mean, and like you say, you're 21, 22 years old and making big money, and you're playing in a band. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I don't think too many guys could do it like that, like they used to, especially now since there's not the venues for these younger guys to play. It's not like there's a bar or a club or something going on 7 days a week where every single place was just jam-packed with people, you know?
That's the truth. That is definitely the truth.
And that not just Poobah, everything from Youngstown, that area, still has such a big popularity. I mean, it's not just guys that were into it then, it's people my age. You know, it's funny, you go on you go on Google and type in Youngstown rock, type in Poobah, you'll eventually hit down the rabbit hole a little bit. You'll hit some like Japanese blog sites that talk about the Youngstown scene, and you're like, wow, okay, Youngstown is known in Japan.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah,
when you look at, you know, guys like Jim, and he had mentioned Bob DiPiero, who went to become like the king of songwriters in Nashville, and I mean, some of these bands, sometimes there would be like it'd be at some church hall or something, and it'd be like 10 bands, and it was like everybody. And it was like everybody was either signed or had a deal or was working with guys like Jimi Hendrix's bass player. You know, I mean, you had Left End going, and then you had guys like Bill Bodine, and he went on to, you know, like he went on with Sergio Mendes and wrote the Judge Judy theme song. And then you had guys like Blue Ash and Frank and all those guys, and Left End, and you know, Gary Markowski and Myron Grombacher and Glass Harp and all these, you know, sometimes you'd have like 6 of these bands playing in the same afternoon. I mean, it was nuts, man.
And there's so many people stuffed in those rooms. It's so hot. There's so many people in there.
Yeah, and the places would be packed. And I mean, like the Eagles Hall, we used to, you know, they used to do some bands over here not too far away at the Eagles Hall, and the Ukrainian Hall on Villa Vista, and a you know, Packard Music Hall, and some of those different CYO groups at some of those churches in Warren, and it, you know, and then all the different bars like the Apartment and the Freak Out, and you know, the house that Jack built, and you know, I mean, the list just went on and on. So what were some of your favorite places to play, like the bar scene? Now, what were some of your favorite bars out there?
There was so many, but I really liked playing at the Agora in Cleveland, Agora Youngstown, and Agora in Toledo, and Agora in Columbus. We really had a lot of fun times down there in Columbus. And I played with Brownsville Station and Catfish at the Cleveland Agora.
Yeah.
And Velvet Underground. And they had some groupies, man.
Uh-huh. That's pretty wild. Now, how about just even as a fan, like at the Youngstown Tomorrow Club and stuff? What were some of the shows there that you remember, or some that you thought were really good, or something like that?
We played there with Judas Priest on their Unleashed in the East tour, and when I went backstage after we played our set, their road manager comes up to me. He goes, "Good job, Mike." And I said, "Well, thank you." And he goes, "You know how I could tell you did good?" And I says, "How's that?" And he goes, "You didn't get pelted."
You got to say, you know what? You know what? I would say that the one thing about the crowd at the Tomorrow Club in Youngstown, I think we were just so into the music that everybody felt welcome there. You know, I don't care if you went down there, it was Mahogany Rush or John Lee Hooker or, you know, a punk band or, you know, Tom Petty or whoever. I think we were a respectful audience because I think we had this higher music IQ than a lot of places. And I think we were in and accepting of just about anything that would come our way down there, you know?
Right. Yes. I felt very privileged to be able to go see world famous bands.
Yeah.
I mean, they were right there, and you could sometimes talk to them. I saw Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush there. I saw so many great bands. I mean, just so many. I used to really look forward to going down there on Sunday nights because they would have usually a national act almost every week.
Yeah.
I saw Boston in that bar, you know.
Now for like Zach, I mean, I mean, everybody and their brother played there, and it seemed like they played there 2 weeks before they hit the big time. And we're talking Journey, Pat Benatar, Bob Seger, Alice Cooper, Tom Petty, Meatloaf, the Tubes, Pat Benatar, the Ramones, the Police.
My entire rock and pop section, pretty much.
Right. And we used to see these bands for like $2, like up close too. Right. And right in Youngstown. It was just an amazing time. And I think we were fortunate enough to be a part of that, because I don't think you'll ever see anything like that again. I just don't see that ever happening again. We are fortunate to be at the right time, you know?
I'd like to think it could happen again, but who am I to say? I'm just a time traveler.
Yeah, there you go. And let's see. So what were some of your other here's a great one. This here is an all-time classic, because this actually made the front page of the newspaper. They were playing at a place called Southway Bowl on South Avenue in Youngstown, and it was a Sunday afternoon. It was a great day, and I know my buddy TJ was working lights for you guys, and we were just the party was just raging. Great day, and the cops busted it supposedly for drugs. And I remember my one buddy worked at Southway Lanes, and he lived right next door. And somebody come in and said, "Man, you better get out of here, man. There's a million cops out front." I jump out the back door, and next thing you know, man, I mean, they just busted the place. They started taking everybody away. Remember that? That was a big deal.
Yeah, there was a nice big crowd there, and everybody was getting into Poobah. And all of a sudden, there's like 50 policemen in there, and like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah,
I mean, there were people left and right. And
yeah,
that was the end of the show. And some kid comes walking up, and I see him lift up the drum case and throw something in there. And I thought, what the hell was that? But then a second later, some policemen grabbed him and took him out of there. And that was the end of our show. We were mad because we did all that rehearsing.
Yeah.
Promo and everything. We felt like somebody else used us for their own happy day.
It was about like that, you know. That's one of those things. I just still picture. I could just see that whole thing going down. And I'll tell you, when they used to do Mr. Destroyer with the metal suit and everything and the fire, that was just kick ass, man.
I'll never forget. Glenn says to me, he goes, "You know, I burned the hair off my arms tonight when I set the drums on fire."
Yeah, TJ's checking in, and he was running the lights for you guys that day. And, you know, that's how me and TJ kind of became friends, because one day we were just happened to be talking about that story, and you guys had come up, and he was going, "Were you there?" I go, "Oh, yeah." And he was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I was running lights that day." And that was something. Todd says Somebody Stole My Weed is a great tune. That's one of their favorites. So Todd says Somebody Stole My Weed. Thumbs up on that one.
It's on YouTube or Spotify. Poobah, Somebody Stole My Weed. And if you see the live version, it's got a talking dog in it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's pretty wild. So when you look back, you know, and first of all, it's so cool that you're still doing this, what you started out to do when you were a teenager, and you're still playing and you're still true to the cause. So, you know what do you think was the reason behind so many, you know, great, the whole musical talent scene at the time? What do you think was responsible for that here in Youngstown? Why do you think we are such a hotbed for that?
I think that the Beatles came and made all the young boys want the girls to look at them like that. "Oh, John, oh, Paul."
Yeah.
And so we all wanted to be the Beatles.
Yeah.
And, you know, a couple of them made some great careers, but so many of us did not have the right haircut.
Yeah. Well, you know how it goes, man. It's the luck of the draw, you know, and the way stuff happens. I mean, you know, I when I look at it, you know, and you know, knowing some of my friends and how, you know, either they were knocking at the door almost there or whatever, there is so much luck involved. Wouldn't you say? I mean, there's there's so much luck that you could plan and practice and have a plan, and all of a sudden one day it's one asshole at a record company doesn't like it, or he gets fired and all his bands are out, or I've just heard all the stories of anything that could possibly happen. It's amazing to get through to that level. And like I say, you could be the most driven person, you could be the best player out there, but you got to get that break. It's got to fall. The chips got to fall your way,
That's right. You needed to have the right formula at the right time in the right place with the right stuff.
Yep. Now I was talking, to our buddy Ace Acker, who passed away recently, and with their band Law, they had a very interesting story on how they got discovered. A friend of theirs gave Roger Daltrey a tape, and it was his demo tape, and Law's music was on the flip side of the demo. Roger Daltrey put that tape in, played the Law side, and said, "This is the band we're looking for." And then they went on tour and stuff with the Who. The Who signed them, and they had a short run. But then this gets back to once they got rolling, it was all of a sudden their sound didn't fit what was going on, At the time they loved them, and it was like, oh yeah, this is the band. 2 years later, the sound shifted, and they're like, oh, you know what? You're too funky. You're too this. You're too that.
Yeah, they weren't very funk oriented.
Yeah. And now
album Breaking, that's still pretty sought after. Though.
Yeah, yeah. And then the next thing you know, boom, man, it's off to something else. And you were thinking, one day you're opening for the Who, and you're there with Keith Moon and stuff. And then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, dude, that ain't the sound we're looking for, And
yeah, you'd 1 minute you think you're going to be loaning Keith Moon some drumsticks, the next day, And then,
right.
I got to meet Keith Moon.
Oh yeah, did you party with them? Or were they?
Yeah, Jimmy was buddies with him, right?
Well, I wouldn't say I was buddies with him, but
you rubbed shoulders with them.
They came into the bar I was playing at in Cleveland on their night off, and we sat there after the show and talked to them for hours. And finally, when the show was over at the Cleveland Agora, Hank Lacani, the owner, goes, "Hey, Jim, where's your band at?" And I gathered everybody. He goes, "How would you guys like to play for the Who's private party tomorrow night? Just leave your stuff set up. And after the concert, we'll come back here. The bar's closed on Thursdays, but there'll be a lot of people here for this private event." And there was. I saw Guitar Pick of the Raspberries there. I saw Glass Harps Roadies there. Hey, Al. And I saw Mike Belkin there, Joe Walsh's manager.
Yeah. Cool. I'll tell you what, man, at that point in time too, man, Cleveland really was the rock and roll capital of the world, man. I mean, it wasn't even, and that whole attitude too, ran over into the Youngstown area. We were a part of that too, is, that mentality. I think, that's why the Stones and all these people and Pink Floyd were selling out Cleveland Stadium. There was a whole lot of people from the Youngstown area that were a part of that. And, like I said about, the audiences at the Tomorrow Club being like respectful and being so open-minded. And that's why, when you look at all the bands that really broke out of Cleveland, like Rush, that was all due to WMMS. Bruce Springsteen, the first place he ever became popular was in Cleveland. David Bowie, U2, all these people, the first places they played outside of England or whatever, or out of their hometowns, they would usually come to Cleveland next because everybody would just eat it up, man. It was like, everybody was into it. It was just, it was really hard to explain, but people just gravitated to all these new sounds that were coming out. And it was just, we were part of that mentality. I mean, Rush played at the Tomorrow Club at least 4 or 5 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 2112, you get saw 2112 for $5.
Back in the day.
Yeah, but those were definitely
UFO.
Oh yeah,
opened. And now that the UFO album is out, the live in 1977, and it's got the pictures from Youngstown on the album cover.
No kidding. I'll have to look that one up. I'll have to see it out there. Yeah, so
it's a little bit like that other live one they had. Hippy's probably got those live UFO albums.
Oh, I got quite a lot of UFO for sure.
I figure.
Yeah, Too Hot to Handle. That was my favorite. Too Hot to Handle, man. And then let's see. Oh, Rick Derringer recorded a live album at the Tomorrow Club. That was another one. I was at that one. And then Todd Rundgren, he played he was on this. He put out a 2-album live set. It was called Back to the Bars, and supposedly it was recorded at the Akron Agora and the Cleveland Agora. But from what I heard, and I don't know how true that is, but I guess they did some different overdubs and stuff in Youngstown too. I think they got the best of the these 6 shows that they did, and put them all together. So,
yeah, I knew it was at the Akron Agora.
Yeah. And from what I heard, they use little snips from there or whatever. How true that is, I don't know. But so anyways, Jimmy, tell us about what else you got on the horizon. What else is happening, man?
Well, besides the fact that I'm in West Virginia right now, but I'm coming to Brookfield, Ohio on April 12th at Fat Hippy Records in Brookfield. Is it 7188 Warren Sharon Road?
You got it, Jim.
Boy, look at that. Jimmy's on the ball there,
Marketing
man.
machine over here.
Wow. You know he's done a few of these before,
yeah,
right?
Right.
He had the address down pat. So what else you got going on Record Store Day? So you're talking about the great releases.
Yeah, great releases. We are going to be doing a giveaway. Victrola has graciously provided a brand new turntable we're going to be giving away. So anybody that makes a purchase of a Record Store Day release, their name will be entered in, and we'll pull a ticket and raffle that off at the end of the day. Poobah will be going on at 3, but opening up for them, we actually have our house DJ Justin Pounds. He's part of a little Youngstown area rap duo called JMP and the E. He's going to be spinning some live vinyl, and he's got a ton of Youngstown area novelty songs and psychedelic stuff, and a lot of Youngstown throwbacks he's going to whip into the mix there. Will be interesting.
Now your record shop is a little different because you seem to cater also to a younger crowd. Am I correct in saying this? Yeah. And a little more, hip hop and some things like that.
Yeah, I try to have a wider variety than most shops. I feel like a lot of record stores cater to one type of collector, and I just kind of want to be the place where you go in and you don't settle for something that you find. You can kind of think of a few things you're looking for and maybe find a few of them. Right.
And, sometimes when I think of, vinyl in my brain, it's still more of a classic rock lean. And I know it's getting away from that, but I would say that, the whole vinyl thing, of course, was built on classic rock.
Well, we can thank Sirius, the classic vinyl station, for that. That's what everybody associates with.
Right. So, so you guys venture out into some different things. Explain what separates you from the different stores.
Well, not a lot of stores have hip hop in general, but I have a lot of underground hip hop and indie rock, local acts. I try to put on stuff that it's direct. A lot of it I get directly from the artists. I get a lot of stuff directly from Jim too. I try to reach out and cut out the middleman and get it directly from the artist. So I work with a lot of independent artists like that, but I have a huge focus on the underground hip hop scene nationwide and locally.
Yeah. So what are some of the hot names in there? Not that I would know them, but who are some of the people in the Youngstown area that
when the Youngstown area, we got a great guy named MC Homeless, who he's been on tour around here a few times with Cool Keith, who, if you know anything about 90s hip hop, Cool Keith is like a very abstract, goofy kind of rapper, but he's really well respected. He's got a great sound. And MC Homeless has been touring with him for a couple years now. He's got a couple EPs with him. He just released a studio album that had Fishbone on it and some other interesting bands that he collaborated with. He's one of the bigger acts in the Youngstown area. You got a lot of people making beats in the Youngstown area, producers in Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I'm trying to do a little bit of an in-store session, kind of like NPR, their little tiny desk thing.
Yeah.
Trying to do something like that and organize a few showcase sort of the local scene.
Right. So that's pretty interesting. I think that's a good thing for people to know that this is where you're going to find some of the different stuff that you don't find.
Yeah,
like
not just hip hop, electronic, oldies. As much polka as I can find. That's actually oddly, that's like hard to find now.
Yeah, I'm Ukrainian, and I got my radio start playing polkas. So and I used to sit in for Jimmy Paul. And Jimmy Paul was the guy that came up with the Pittsburgh Steelers polka, and he had a show on WNIO AM back in the day, and that's how I got started.
Okay,
and I just took it from there. But yeah, I'm definitely a polka fan. I grew up with polkas from day one. First band I ever remember seeing live, I was probably about 5 years old, and it was a polka band at Kirkuzi Hall. I remember me and my mom walked there, which was actually right across the street from the Southway lanes where the big bus went down. Yeah, fast forward 12 years from that. And I can still remember seeing that polka band, one of my earliest memories. Mm-hmm. And I remember how loud it was. I was a little afraid. It was like, whoa, is that loud?
Yeah, death metal and polka. That's the loudest you can get.
Right. So how about you, Jimmy? What was the first album you remember buying?
The Byrds, Mr. Tambourine Man.
Oh, good selection.
And the Yardbirds and the Beatles.
Yep, that sounds about 3 good ones.
Excellent.
I had a bunch of albums, so I could always.
Now, how about any of the? What was like maybe the first big concert you went to that maybe when you said, "Man, this is what I want to get into" or whatever?
Well, I saw my sister and her beautiful girlfriends, and I liked them. But at any rate, they were all going nuts over the Beatles, and I thought, man, I got to do that. And then my sister took me to see Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs at Idora Park.
Nice.
And who was that band called? The Shadows of Night. They had another version of Gloria.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I know, when I was 15 years old and I had to be driven to the show, I opened up for the Pied Pipers with Dick Belly from the Human Beings in their band at Idora. And, it was really great. It was really fun.
I was just a little too young for that. That's when I was just coming into that. But yeah, that's another great band from the Youngstown area. Of course, the Human Beings. Yeah. That was really something to see. And boy, we just a great musical scene, man. A great time to grow up and a great time to be a part of that. That's for sure. How about that? What was the first song you learned how to play?
Gloria.
Okay.
I think that was that or Luai.
Right.
Or Wild Thing. It was one of those 3. It was either Wild Thing, Luai, or Gloria. And I still like those songs, and I'm willing to play them now.
Yeah. Oh, no, those are good songs. Those are definitely good songs. That whole garage band sound of the 60s really was a cool period of time.
I like to make my own version.
On the trips through the 60s music all the time. It's like one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, the other day I had the Standell's Dirty Water stuck in my head. I couldn't get that song out of my head. Oh, and Question Mark and the Mysterians, 96 Tears. Both of those songs were just like stuck in my head for a couple of days.
Great
ones. So those were all great.
Hang on, Floopy.
Oh yeah. And you know what? See, what was cool about that too, and you could probably talk about this a little bit, is because these garage bands were songs that were fun and easy to play. So if you got a band, you could learn how to play all these songs and get out there and make it happen, right?
That is true, for sure. Us young guitar players, we needed to learn to satisfy our insatiable lust for guitar.
Now, did you take lessons when you first started, or you self-taught?
Well, my grandmother took me when I was 13 years old to T. Ross Music in Struthers.
Right.
And I took lessons there for a year. And I kept asking the teacher there to teach me some Beatles or Rolling Stones or Kinks. And he said, that's all flash in the pan garbage. And he goes, I'm going to teach you the jazz and stuff, and that's what will last forever. And I'm not saying that he isn't right, that jazz will last forever, but so did the Beatles and the Stones and the Kinks.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn how to play those power chords, and he wouldn't. He was like, you do that and you can just go somewhere else and take lessons. So guess what? I quit and went and took lessons off the guitar player from the Shillings.
Uh-huh.
Play bar chords and stuff, and he taught me how to play 4 or 5 songs that I wanted that the teacher wouldn't teach me. So, and that really expanded my knowledge. He played piano and guitar, so he taught me a lot about how some of the chords went together and stuff.
Yeah. That was another thing back then, to learn some of those things. If you could pick it up yourself, or if you had somebody, everybody had to figure out what was going on there, right? Because this was all uncharted territory. These weren't people writing this stuff down. So if you had a record, you had to just sit there and listen, and there was no internet, no, watch this guy or whatever. It was like either you would have to go out and watch the bands and see what they were doing, or you had to get the
groove into the record, playing that song over and over again. You wanted to learn,
right, or these guys would just be learning this stuff and picking it up as they were going on, because it was just uncharted territory. And I think that's what made it so exciting too. I think when you hear guys that were coming up at that time, I think that was one of the things that was really appealing, or the allure of the whole thing was you were just creating this new stuff off the top of your head, new sounds every time you turned around.
When that 60s garage sound, and that never really went away. Like on the West Coast, you got that, but that's like back ever so much more now. All these indie rock bands emulate that to a T, and so all the kids are still, they'll Google search all the old bands from the 60s, so they're still tapped in with all that.
That's very cool. Now back in the day, we're talking now maybe 50, almost 60 years here. Did you ever think that you, first of all, would still be doing this, or that this music would still be as popular as it is?
I had no friggin' idea that it was going to become so popular worldwide, and that people would be paying $2,000 for my album. How can you even see that happening?
Jeff Buzzard wants to know, have you ever played with the Moody Blues?
No, but I saw them open with John Mayall opening for them in Cleveland, and they were fabulous.
Oh, yeah. Actually, Justin Haywood played over at the Robbins Theater, I think about a year ago. And it was just him, and he had somebody on keyboards and a woman playing flute, and they did like some acoustic, but they were still excellent, man. He really put on an excellent show.
His solo stuff's pretty good.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's the thing, too. The strength of this music is just, it's amazing that, that Nights in White Satin is still like
iconic.
Yeah. That you would still listen to this. You think we're listening to music from 1960 and 2025. That would be like if in 1960 you were listening to music from like 1910.
Yeah.
I think classic rock is what's screwing us all up, because we have no concept of time until we look and go, that was 50 years ago. How could that be, man?
Like listening to organ grinder music in the 70s. Like, it doesn't make sense, but
yeah,
somebody's doing it.
I mean, it's just crazy on that. Now, what about you, Zach? I mean, who are some of your favorite bands growing up? First album, that kind of thing?
Well, the first vinyl record I remember getting was as a gift. It was probably the Who's Next. And I can remember getting that album. I was a big Who fan. That was probably one of my first like favorite classic rock bands. And it's funny because growing up, I heard so much classic rock that I didn't even really consider it classic rock. That was just rock to me. And, all the newer stuff, just not that I turned my nose up at it, but I really appreciated it as much as the newer stuff. So I never kind of go away from those classics. But.
Right. You know what? The Who's Next. Now that's a memory that I have. Is I got that from the Columbia Record Club. Now I know Jimmy remembers the Columbia Record Club. You used to order 10 albums for like a dime.
Yeah, they somehow hung it on until the CD era, shockingly.
Yeah, and you would get 10 albums for a dime, and you had to swear on a stack of Bibles that you would buy like 10 albums over the next 3 years or something. Well, they couldn't hold anybody responsible because we were all kids,
right.
You know? And I remember my first batch that I got when I ordered that, and it was Uriah Heep, Wizard's Birthday, Humble Pie Live at the Fillmore, Yes, Close to the Edge, and the Who's Next. And my mom, my mom was never one of these people that was like, lower that or what's that rock and roll. My dad stayed with big bands till he died. I mean, to him, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Tony Bennett, those guys, that was it. He didn't want to hear anything else. But the only time my mom got pissed, so to speak, was with the cover of Who's Next, with them taking a leak. That was the only time she ever really said anything about
Mom, no, they're just admiring that monolith thing.
Yeah. My mom wasn't that dumb. She caught on to that pretty quick.
Exactly. Right. Who's Next was the tour that I got to play for them 2 nights in a row.
Oh, wow. Man. And that album's fantastic. That's one of those albums. There's not a clunker on that one.
Front to back.
My favorite Who album.
Yeah, I think everybody's really, with Bubba O'Reilly, Going Mobile.
I think there's something to be said for Tommy, but definitely Who's Next.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
Like Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good one, too. All right. Well, listen, guys, it's almost time to wrap this up. And I hope everybody had a good time tonight.
I did want to say really quick, I didn't get a chance earlier to say about the Record Store Day event that we're also having a few food trucks pull up. I've got a Sugar Mama cannoli cart, which is a custom cannoli cart out of Cleveland. I've got Slow Hurry Coffee showing up, which is a Brookfield-based pop-up. And I've got Vegeteer Express, which is vegetarian-based breakfast and lunch options. So,
that's cool. So, you know what? Why don't, before we wrap up, give the whole rundown, the address, the times, every band. Let's hit that up one more time before we.
All right, yeah, it's going to be April 12th, 7188 Warren Sharon Road in Brookfield. It's Fat Hippy Records, and we have got food carts pulling up, exclusive releases, a Victrola giveaway, sales, and of course, Jim and Poobah headlining at 3 p.m. So definitely show up for that. That's going to be a blast.
Hey, that's awesome. Oh, one more quick question. Now, do you guys buy and sell used records?
I sure do.
Okay. Now,
records, CDs, and tapes.
Now,
and maybe 8 tracks, but let's keep that on the low because those are kind of a gamble. But
yeah, now I do want to make sure that some people really realize what happens when you come to a place like yours on what you buy. Because I know a lot of people have sat there and had these warped, mildew-covered records sitting in there, but it was their dad's. My dad bought that Birch record too, and this has been in our garage in our soaking wet basement. But
no, I one time got a mildewy box that was filled with like pieces of records. I kid you not.
Yeah,
and that they were like, "What will you give me for this?" I said, "Nothing. I'll show you out the door gladly."
That's like me. I remember one time years back, I had this. All my records. I have no pristine records, and most of my records are gone because. I was playing in bars for years with these, so they were scratched. The drinks spilled on them. Every album cover had some kind of cup stain or whatever. Right. Well, it wasn't really a cup, probably a glass or a bottle or whatever. And I remember taking them there, and they said, "Well," they looked at it, and they go, "We got a dumpster back." It's like, wait a minute, this scratched up. This is Def Leppard, man. This is Hysteria.
This is Meet the Beatles. It was only pressed 60,000 times. Come on, this copy with a hole in it's got to work, right? It's a hole right next to where there's supposed to be a hole.
Yeah, and that's how it went. Hey, it looks like TJ has a girlfriend. You know, it's one of these spam people replying on Facebook. It says, TJ, wow, I really love what you share on Facebook. I really want to meet you or send you some requests, but it's not going through. Please write me back. Boy, look at that. TJ, his wife better not see that. He ended up getting a girlfriend here.
Yeah. I think they just want to.
Yeah. I just want to know.
At Fat Hippies, but we're all going to be coming back up to the Youngstown area on the 19th of April at Steel Valley Brew. So the 12th at Fat Hippie Records and the 19th at Steel Valley Brew with Poobah. Thank you.
Hey, that's awesome. Jimmy, thanks for talking with us. It's always good to share some great memories with you. You know, you've been a part of my, musical experiences here for many, many years from day one here in Youngstown. And we love you. And Zach, good luck and continued success with Fat Hippie Records. And April 12th, man, stop out and see this whole bunch of crazies. It's going to be an awesome time.
Oh, great time.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. Jimmy, talk to you soon, my brother. All right. So there you go, man. It's National Record Store Day coming up April 12th. Fat Hippie Records in Brookfield. It's going on all day. Follow them on Facebook. I'm sure you're online, right?
I'm on just about everything there is. I made a LinkedIn 2 days ago. I'm 15 years late, but yeah, I'm everywhere.
All right, man. Stop out and see them, help out these young guys starting out these local businesses because that's what it's all about. So thank you. And I will catch you tomorrow on Y103. I don't know what I got going on. Jibber jabber and a little bit of sports and a couple of bad jokes. And yeah, you know what to expect. All right. So thank you, Joe Danier. Thank you, Youngstown Studio. And hopefully we'll be back with a good show next week. Another good show. So thanks, everybody. Lizzie, talk to you later. Mary, good to hear from you as well. And Linda, good to hear from you too. So take care, everybody. Good night.
Man.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.